Hi and welcome to the 64 Doors. Today we're going to open door 31. Here we find an archetype that is all about leadership, influence, and the future. As usual, we're going to bridge the gap between human design and gene keys when we explore this archetype. Right now, we have the Sun in Leo in gate 31. We have the Earth in Aquarius in gate 41, and the design part of the cross is the 27 in Leo and the 28 in Scorpio. In human design, when the Sun is in 31, there are 3 different crosses that we're going to go through. So the Sun is going to be in 31 for 5.7 days. And through these days, we're going to be in 3 different crosses, which are the cross of the unexpected, the cross of influence, and the cross of the alpha. And if you look at the gates that make up the cross, you can see that the first cross has the 27 and the 28 on the design side, but the other 2 crosses have the 24 and the 44. The description of the right angle cross of the unexpected is you carry the energy that is likely to land you in a place of leadership rather unexpectedly. It will seem to come from nowhere. Suddenly you're in the limelight, or at least holding things up. Be aware that you have this energy and at some point will be thrust into a lead role. And I would say that this is a lot because of the 28, the risk taker, the game player, that kind of is thrown into things, that Scorpio energy. And for the other 2 crosses, we have the 44 that is much more about teamwork and finding your soul fractal and having these people co-creating with you. So it's about a leadership, a collective leadership, we could say, that has to do with actually having people that are listening to you, you could say. If we go back to the body graph and look at the standard view, we can see that the 31 comes from the throat center and meets the 7 in the G center. And in the circuitry book, this is the channel of the alpha, a leadership for good or bad. You are designed to be picked out of the crowd one day as a true leader. The more reluctant you are to assume this status, the better leader you would be. So in the 64 doors, we are calling this archetype the president. And it's really somebody who's not proclaiming themselves as a leader, but it's chosen. The collective is choosing this leader to become the president. And the more reluctant, the better, almost. If we looked at this at the 7 or 31 in itself, it says the gate of leading, influence, people who are best showing others how to attain future goals rather than leading themselves. And that is kind of the president. It's the person on the podium that kind of speaks about the direction, that speaks about what needs to be done. But then, like we're saying, without the teamwork from others, it cannot do a lot itself. Some of the keywords that we're using in the 64 doors, where we are speaking about this archetype, is influence, alpha, leadership. And the internal motivator is let's build a better future. Achilles' heel needs to be recognized in order to have influence, cares more about the future than the past. Positive attributes, naturally influential, and it's a wizard of words. And this is something that I actually want to go into the living library and speak about. So in the living library, we have the Codon ring of no return, which is made up of the 31 and the 62. And both these gene keys are all about words and the use of language. So I want to read about this Codon ring. The Codon ring of no return. This mysteriously named codon, the ring of no return, refers to the evolutionary process that takes place when higher consciousness reaches the throat center in the human beings. The throat center is where the greatest human initiation occurs. This is the great initiatic leap from the 4th causal body into the 5th bodic body. Once you begin to speak your truth and the higher Involutionary currents begin to use your voice to transmit their truths. There is no return. At this point, you have broken away from the lower realms forever, taking the leap from worship to embodiment. And this says a lot about the leadership of the 31. It is an evolutionary leadership. It's kind of taking a stance for evolution, and then there is no way back. It's only forward that exists. And the gene keys, to kind of go back and speak about how the gene keys look at the I Ching, and it's really about the frequency band. So we can see here there are 3 words: red, green, and blue. The red word is about the shadow frequency, the contracted state, the fear state. And then the green and the blue are about the expansion, a higher frequency, more opening, more loving. And as human beings, we have access to this contracted frequency of the shadow, but also the possibility of opening up to a more expansive, a more loving frequency. And it's nothing wrong that we are able to kind of swim and have access to all the different frequencies in the frequency band. You can also see that what we have on the other side of the mandala is what we call the programming partner. And that's when we look at it in a human design sense, you can see that we're saying in the beginning that we have the 31. That's the sun, and then the earth is the 41, and they are opposite in the ray of mandala. So in the gene keys, we say that they are programming partners and that they functions together. So when you are in arrogance, that is about not really being grounded in reality. It's a kind of fantasy. And then the higher frequency of leadership, it's a leadership about the future. So it's anticipating what's coming. It has the 31 has that inherent knowing and feeling of patterns and trends and what's coming. It is also in astrology Leo, and you can see in astrology the keywords of Leo is really about being a leader, the illuminated leader, the courageous creator. It's about, it's the roaring heat, the fire that radiates and loving in all directions. And it's service to self-growth through the will of intuition and manifestation. So very powerful. Even in astrology, we can see how this is very influential. So integral human design is a little bit different than the circuitry we're just looking at. So here we have the 7 and the 31 still. We call it the channel of facilitation. So it's not actually the leader that is a dictator. It's facilitating, and it's, like we were saying before, chosen by the people. On the low frequency, however, we have the command of like being that voice that is commanding. In a higher frequency, it is about facilitation, and it's about sharing in a way so that you guide others. And this archetype kind of has to go through it itself and then become the role model, and then being able to guide others. So we see also it's the stream of service. In the I Ching, we have lake over mountain, and it says receiving the wisdom of the highest good to influence the world below. And yeah, you can see here in the geometry that the 31 is built up of the 58 and the 52. So arrogance is the dissatisfaction of stress, leadership is the vitality of restraint, and humility is the bliss of stillness. That's super beautiful, the Siddhic frequency. And you have the palm mudra, which helps you to actually, I think, let me just play it because I don't know if this is yeah, let's see here. This is beautiful. So that's the mudra. I thought he was gonna make the mudra. That's why I put the video on, but maybe this is actually how you do it. And this kind of reminds me of the Siddhic frequency. And you have the dream arc. So the dream arc, cockroach, lamb, and bluebird. And here is what I always say, go to Jane Addams' blog, because she's painting the dream arc and the mudra. So about this week, you can tap into your own self-leadership to start with, because for me, self-leadership is really where it all begins. The 31/7 channel has a lot to do with role modeling. In my case, I have it in line 6, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. I have the 7.6 is my purpose, the 31.6 is my attraction. So it's very strong in me. And a little bit, I think for me, it's difficult to separate them. So the 31 is really the voice of leadership, and the 7 is more the anchoring, and the anchoring in the self, in the G center, that is the role of the self, and they are working together, right? And for me, when you are chosen as a leader, it comes from role modeling, because it has to be embodied. You have to be able to walk your talk to be chosen. Otherwise, it is a manipulation, and people would choose out of that manipulation. So this week, some of the questions for contemplation that you can tap into is, what is the difference between self-leadership and leadership? Where is that? When do you become a leader on the outside and not only on the inside? And then if you would say 5 adjectives that are describing a good leader, what would that be? And are you able to, to kind of have them in your life and live up to them? Because that's also a good stepping stone into becoming the leader and the creator of your own life, of your own direction. The 31 is a lot about that direction. Where are we going? It's future oriented. It's the programming partner of the 41 that has to do with that anticipation of what's coming. And then there's also more, when we look at the gene keys than human design. We speak a lot about the humility, the highest frequency, that has to do with being able to listen to others, so that your voice is representing the voice of the people. So are you good at listening to others, or are you always kind of waiting until they are finished so you can say what you need to say? The 31 in a low frequency has the need to talk, the need to be heard, is kind of the dilemma of it. And for you, I would also ask this question: what is the difference with leading and role modeling, or how do they go hand in hand? It's also weak to be a little bit like kind of not self-criticizing, but seeing we all have a bit of arrogance, I think, in certain things, or judgment. So to really look this week, like where do you become arrogant? Where do you feel like your voice is more important than somebody else's voice? Where do you think that you know better? Where are you more sure about the future than other people? So to not be afraid to kind of pause yourself and catch that. And maybe instead of speaking so much, it's about listening. So I'm wishing everybody a good transit in the 31, and I will see you again next week. Thank you.